Hey guys, welcome to the Ultimate Goosebumps Man channel, and today I am back finally with more videos. I've had a bit of a hiatus just because I've been busy with school, getting back into the swing of things there. I'm not going to bring a review for you guys today. I decided to do something a little different. I will be getting back to regular reviews soon with Let's Get Invisible. Got the book and episode review coming up for those, and I got a bunch of other ones in the works, so I'm really excited to bring those out. But for today, I decided to make a bit of a ranking video, something fun. Now, I know a lot of Goosebumps YouTubers usually will do the ranking of the R.L. Stine specials, the 6 specials that were hosted by R.L. Stine at the beginning and the end. Um, that's the most what most people do. I'm gonna go one step further just to make things a little different. I'm going to, instead of just doing the Stein specials, I'm going to be ranking all 16 two-parter episodes that the show had over the run. Yeah, there's 16 of them throughout all 4 seasons. I mean, season 4 was all two-parters, so there's that. But yeah, I got a lot of two-parters to talk about, a lot of opinions, some probably controversial, but I'm just gonna kind of get right into it, and I hope you all enjoy. So to get right into the ranking. So starting off with my number 16, my least favorite R.L. Stine special, in my opinion, the worst one, and easily one of the worst episodes of the whole show, in my personal opinion. One of the worst, easily the worst two-parter. I didn't mean Stein special. Two-parter in general. And one of the worst episodes of the whole show. Attack the Mutant. I don't like this episode. I know I'm using the books, first of all. I don't have physical media for a lot of them. Still working on getting the DVDs. I have a couple of them in my collection, one custom and one official, but the rest of them I'm just gonna use the books for. And if I don't have either the book or the DVD, I'll just put an image on the screen. So anyway, yeah, bottom of the barrel, my opinion is Attack the Mutant. Don't like this episode. It's awful, in my opinion. It's so goofy, so cheesy, so just ridiculous in every way. And I know Goosebumps is a very cheesy show, but this episode just took it to a whole other level. The acting is really bad from pretty much everybody. The parents are just super cartoony and just they make no sense. Like they just don't. Like the mom being this like ditzy kind of woman who's just into romance novels and just doesn't really seem to take a part in her son's life. And then the dad who's just your this big bland stereotype of the dad who hates comic books, tries to do everything to it's just not good. I just don't like them. Skipper's the guy who plays Skipper. He's fine. He was in another episode. He played Seth in Click. I think he was better there than he was in this episode. But I will say I think the name is Scott Wickware, the guy who played the Masked Mutant. He did a fun job. He was hamming it up and being corny, and I think it worked the best for him. But it's still just it doesn't work for me. There is a really fun Adam West cameo, even though again it's kind of wasted because he's literally there. He gets up and just leaves. Like it's so dull. Like I don't like this episode. It's boring. There's so much drawn out, unnecessary stuff. Like this could have easily been a 20-minute episode. This did not deserve to be a two-parter, in my opinion. It's just not good. It's horrendous. It's my least favorite two-parter. And it's, again, in my opinion, one of the worst episodes of the whole show. Production value, awful. The Mutants' headquarters is so obviously like a CGI green screen effect. It's in the 90s. The CGI was horrible in this. The Mutants' lair it's so terrible. It's so bright, so flashy, it looks fine, but like for most of it, it is a CGI rendered green screen effect. It does not look good. In the finale, when you actually do get into some of that Mutants' lair and stuff, like there's a deeper in during the final climax in the fight scene, that was a practical set. That looked fine, but still, I don't know. I've just never been a big fan of this episode, and it's easily my least favorite two-parter. So, moving on to number 15, the second worst two-parter of the whole show, and again, another one of the worst episodes. Easily my top 10, if not top 15 worst. There's some definitely worse than this one, but still not good in any ways, and that is Deep Trouble. I don't know how many Goosebumps fans really like the episode. Now, technically, the episode is more akin to Deep Trouble 2 than it is the first book, even though there are some elements. But a lot of the plot elements in the episode are more similar to the second Deep Trouble book. but it's just another dull episode. There's not much going on. Really bad effects, bad acting from most of the kids. You know, it's just very uninteresting and bland in my opinion. Like there's some really poor CGI effects with the like the giant animals, the giant fish and stuff that look really weird. I know it's the 90s, so they kind of had to do that stuff, but it looks really glaringly bad in this episode. Like that little fish in the tank that ends up turning into that giant pufferfish thing, that looked really dumb. Like I think the practical effect when it actually was out and like giant, that looked cool, but when it's just swimming around in the tank, it looks really bad. Like the effects are just not good. Um, Again, acting is really bad, really corny and dumb ending. I will say the kind of climax that they have with the mutant fish people, I thought that was cool. I think the makeup looked really cool on them. But again, it was very dull, very bland. There's a bit of a mystery element going on, but it's just not very engaging in my opinion. Yeah, I don't have much else to say. It's just bad. It's just really bad. Another episode that did not really deserve two-parter status. I feel like it easily could have gone by with the 20-minute one for Deep Trouble. Easily. So yeah, that's my number 15. So number 14 is one that I don't have a physical copy of either in book or DVD form, so I'll just be throwing an image up on the screen. But it is Perfect School. I know a lot of people really like Perfect School, but I personally have never gotten it. I don't know. It's just not a super interesting story in my opinion. There's just some really cringy acting. I think there's just, I don't know. It's just very dull again. I'm sorry if I'm kind of rambling or being weird. It's late for me, so I'm not able to think as straight as usually, but yeah, Perfect School, very dull. Not really one that interests me too much. Again, some pretty cringy acting overall. There's a lot of, really weird scenes. I think the one effective scene in the episode, is when I think his name is Brian goes down into the school's like basement laboratory thing and comes across the clones of him in the test tubes, like the clones that are like slowly developing from like the little fetus thing to the full-grown clone. That was pretty effective and pretty surprising that they managed to get away with that in a kids show in the 90s. But other than that, the episode's pretty dull and bland. I know I keep repeating myself, but I honestly don't know what else to say about it. It's just kind of one of those episodes that I just kind of forget exists, and it's just not very entertaining in my opinion. Yeah, there's not much else to say about that one for me. But moving on, my number 14 spot, or no, 13, sorry. This might step on a few toes, because I know a lot of people seem to like this episode, even though it's kind of mixed. A lot of people hate part 2 of it, people love part 1. I'm kind of in that boat, but I think overall it's still just not that good. Even part 1's not great. One Day at Horrorland. Fan favorite book. Great book. Definitely a must read for any Goosebumps fan, or someone getting into Goosebumps. Highly recommend this book. It's fantastic. The episode, not so much. In the show, obviously, very low budget. They didn't have much they could work with, so they weren't gonna really be able to recreate a full-on amusement park. And it was kind of a similar thing what happened with Shocker on Shock Street. Another kind of dull episode, but this one I think is more egregious because they literally just went to some nature walk around park in the woods and put a bunch of tents up, and it doesn't look very, it looks so cheap. I will say that some of the horrors look really good. I do like the ones that actually are prosthetics look really good, like a lot of the main game show host guy and the ones in the photo booth, like not the photo booth, the front entrance booth and all that stuff. Those looked really good. But then there's also some horrors that have this like blank faced mask that doesn't move, doesn't express, doesn't emote, none of that. And it looks so bad, and it's just very noticeable when you compare it to the other horrors that actually are like makeup and prosthetics and stuff that look really good. It's not really that scary. Part 1 has some moments like the House of Mirrors scene, but again, it's just, I don't know. they really just could not pull off the book in this show. And honestly, in my opinion, they should have left it alone. They didn't have the budget for it. They shouldn't have adapted it. Because they didn't do a good job. It's horrible. Especially part two. Part two just turns into this really crappy comedy that just doesn't work. Like, I know the book did have the game show element kind of at the end, but it's played up so much goofier in part two, and it's not good in the slightest bit. Everything is just super corny and just dumb. You know, the monster commercials thing was just really weird and didn't make sense, and it's like a lot of the writing decisions and stuff were baffling in this episode. I really don't understand what people see about it. Again, I see why people love the book, because the book is incredible. But yeah, if you're gonna get into Horrorland in some way for Goosebumps, just stick to the book. Don't watch the episode. It's not good. You're gonna be really disappointed, in my opinion. If you're binging through the whole show, I wouldn't say skip it per se, because there are far worse episodes than Horrorland, but it's still a really bad one, and one that you don't need to see it, in my opinion. Unless, again, you're binging through the show. If you're binging through the show, honestly, don't skip any episodes. There's maybe like one I would say for sure skip, which is Teacher's Pet, because that is abomination on the whole show. Just that one for sure skip. But if you're binging through the whole show, don't miss this one. Like, it's bad, but it's laughably bad. And you can still get some enjoyment out of it, I feel like, just because of how dumb it is, which is the case with a lot of episodes. But still, as an adaptation of the book, it's horrible. They left out so much just because they couldn't do the budget. You couldn't get the Doom slide. You couldn't get, you know, any of the cool stuff from the book. You do get the coffin cruise, which is interesting, but again, very lame and dull in the episode. Like, again, yeah, they shouldn't have adapted it, in my opinion, because this book was just so, I don't know what the best word to describe it is, but it was just so, like, large scale that it would not have fit the budget of the show. So, yeah. One Day at Horrorland, they should have left it alone. That's all I gotta say. So, moving on to my number, I want to say 12. I'm trying to figure out the numbers in my head. But yeah, number 12 is a very goofy one. It's a more adventure story, but it's goofy in my opinion. It's not as bad as some of the other episodes below it, but it's not great either. And that's how I got my Shrunken head. Book is fun. I like the book. But yeah, the episode is just, it's meh. It's not horrible. There's definitely, again, as I said, there's worse episodes out there. But this one just kind of is a frustrating episode because they did a pretty solid job at adapting the book, honestly. Like, I don't think they did a bad job with that. My main issues with this episode stem from the cringy performances, you know, the more silly. They take it much sillier in the show as per usual. You know, there's some really overacted characters. I think Dr. Hollings is really fun. He's played by the same guy who played the dad in Night of the Living Dummy 2, which I thought was cool. But there's a bunch of other random stuff, like the guy dressed as Elvis flying the helicopter. That was dumb and made no sense. There's just a lot of really random stuff. The way the kid chants Kali-Ya is kind of cringy and just, it's just not a very good episode. Again, it's not horrible, not by any stretch of the imagination, but it's definitely like the second worst of season 4, and it's just, you can definitely tell this is kind of when the writers started fizzling out on the show and didn't really give as much effort as they did in the first 2 seasons, because, you know, this is definitely really quality. Season 3, in my opinion, is the worst season. Is where the quality really started to drop. There are some gems in season 3, but most of it's really bad. But season 4 is a mixed bag. I think there's 2 bad episodes and 2 good episodes. This is more of a mid episode. It's not horrible, but there's definitely much better episodes to watch. The ending is kind of goofy, but also a bit dark in the implications. And yeah, the Shrunken head prop looks cool. I do give him props for that. as with a lot of Goosebumps episodes, the monsters and props always look really good, aside from the horror mask things that they had in Horrorland. But again, all the makeup and stuff looked great on those. But again, yeah, all the practical effects in this show were really good for their time, and you can definitely tell that a lot of the budget went to the monsters, which is what they should have done, because that's the focus of Goosebumps. We all go to Goosebumps for the monsters, and so, you know, obviously that's where they should put the focus on. So, yeah, I think the Shrunken Head look cool. There's some cool, like, really messy but cool looking effects of the eyes glowing green. I'm glad they didn't, like, make the whole head glow like it is in the book. I think that would look really bad. I'm glad they just kind of narrowed it down to the eyes. But yeah, that's all I really got to say about it. It's not, again, it's not horrible, but it's not amazing either. So moving on to, I believe, number, wait, what is it? 11, I believe. Sorry, again, my brain is, I'm trying to organize how it is here. Yeah, 11. Book number 11 is, or episode number 11, is going to be Werewolf Skin from season 3. Another one that I don't have a copy of, but yeah. Werewolf Skin, it's another one of those very dull episodes that just doesn't have much going for it. There's some cool elements to it with the, you know, the concept of werewolf skin is always a really unique idea for werewolves. And I do like the kind of drug allegory kind of thing they're going with it, like the addiction side of things, and how these werewolves have to have their skins and they start having withdrawals without them and stuff. That was in the book and was, you know, it was adapted pretty well into the episode, I think. But there's also just a lot of cringy acting. You know, Alex is a much more comedic character. Everything is more played for laughs, as it is in most of the time in the Goosebumps show. But yeah, it's just kind of it's a weird one. I think it's still really good. There's some cool effects. There's some, you know, very interesting stuff going on around the lore of the werewolf skin. And there's some nice shots and cinematography and stuff, but overall, again, it's just kind of one of those lackluster episodes. You wish there was more, and you kind of wish it could go darker like the book did, especially with how the ending is. Like, you know, you really kind of, they couldn't go as dark in the show as they could in the books, which kind of sucks, because, you know, the books are great a lot of the time. Not all the time, but most of the time the books can be better than the episodes. And yeah, Werewolf Skin just doesn't really do much justice to the book in terms of the tone. They're very different. There's some cool scenes, like the scene at the window when, like, there's the bars in the window and the werewolf is, like, reaching through to try to get to Alex and stuff. That was cool. And I do really like that. There was some pretty tense scenes, but yeah, overall it was a pretty enjoyable episode. Not one of the best, not one of the worst. It's just kind of, yeah, right in that middle area for me. So yeah. Yeah. Moving on to number 10. Now this isn't, these, like, 10, 9, and 8 are really going to step on some toes, I feel like, because these episodes are very well-loved episodes in the community, and I kind of understand why. You know, they're probably some of the higher production quality of the show, but for my personal taste, they're just not very enjoyable. I can appreciate the effort and budget that went into them, but again, they're just not my thing. So I'm going to start off with my number 10 spot, A Night in Terror Tower. Now, this episode is, again, it's pretty dull in my opinion. There's, again, phenomenal production budget. This probably has the best production quality of the whole show. The setting they got for Terror Tower itself looks phenomenal. They really did a good job making a Canadian building actually look like a tower in Britain. It was really cool. Like, the location scout was great. They picked a really nice spot to film it. It really did look like London, so I gotta give them credit for that. The inside of the tower looks really good. You know, there's just a lot of cool stuff in this episode production wise. I think the Lord High Executioner is pretty menacing. There are some pretty creepy moments in this episode, especially like whenever the ghost of Mordred appears. That's always kind of creepy. There is these, a lot of things that happen during the climax of it that are kind of eerie and unsettling. And I think the two actors, Catherine Short and Corey Sevier, who both appeared in other episodes on this list, actually, that I will get to later, I think they both did a pretty good job with their characters. They're not as good here as they are in their later performances or in their other episodes they were in, but I still think they were pretty solid. I think that, it's just not really an interesting setting, in my opinion. Medieval, time travel, historical stuff isn't really my thing. And they really lean into that in the episode and the book, too. And there's also just, the inherent problem that the book also has, where there's just endless chase scenes. It's chase scene after chase scene after chase scene. It's just no stops. And, unlike an episode like How to Kill a Monster that does have a similar format, but it works a lot better there than it does here. Because, again, two-parter syndrome, it really draws it out a bit more. And it's just not as interesting as it could have been. But I still think it's again, it's a very well-made episode, and I gotta commend it for that. And the acting is still really solid. The tour guide's fun. Again, Catherine Short and Corey Sevier do really good in their roles, but I think they're better in their other ones. But yeah, that's really all I gotta say about it. It's still a solid episode. It's just not amazing in my opinion, and again, it's easily the worst of the Stein specials. So there's that. Moving on to number 9, another one that's really gonna step on some toes. This is another one a lot of people love. 9 and 8 are also gonna be that way, but number 9 is Welcome to Camp Nightmare. Now, not a huge fan of this episode. Again, I can appreciate the production budget behind it. It looks great. The setting for Camp Night Moon really is nice. It does bring back that kind of summer camp vibe, because I remember going to summer camp a few times as a kid, and that was always really fun. And this kind of captures that vibe really well. But the main inherent problem is that this episode is just boring, in my opinion. There's just not much going on. It's an ever-growing mystery, but in my opinion, the mystery is not very interesting. I will give credit. The guy who plays Billy is phenomenal. His performance is the last thing wrong with this episode. He easily gives one of the best performances of any kid actor in the Goosebumps show. You really do... He really does capture Billy from the book. As you can see, I am currently reading. But, yeah, he does a great job. Easily the best performance of the episode. The guy who plays Uncle Al is also really great. Larry is hilarious. I will give him that. I think a lot of the performances are really fun, really well done. But again, it's just the storyline and the things that happen in the episode are just very dull, boring, not very scary. I think the Saber creature, the animatronic they use for Saber, is really good. I really commend that effect. I think that looks great. And the twist ending is so stupid. It's easily one of the worst and most cringy twist endings of the entire Goosebumps show. It's not very good. It really knocks the episode down a ton just because of that ending. And just the way they decided to wrap that story up. So yeah, that's kind of my reasoning why it's lower. I get why people love it. It's still in the top 10 of the two-parters, so there's that. But it's still, again, it's just kind of dull in my opinion. Moving on to number 8. The final one that'll really pull some strings, I feel like. So a lot of people, this is one of the best two-parters. A lot of people think it's one of the best R.L. Stein specials. And I definitely agree that it's a solid episode, but I prefer the other two sequel stories, I guess, over this one, or other two versions of the story over this one, and that is Night of the Living Dummy 3. A lot of people really love this episode, and I get why. Again, really high production value, much like Terror Tower and Welcome to Camp Nightmare. My problem with Dummy 3 is that part 1 seems inconsequential, doesn't need to be there. It's all just setting up the characters, which is fine. You can set up the characters because you need to relate to them, but You go to a Night of the Living Dummy episode to see Slappy and see Slappy's antics. And in the first part of this episode, you get a lot of pranks and mischief going on, like sabotage, you know, the ruined dinner table, the like Zane's photographs being ruined, all those things. And alludes to the fact that Slappy is doing them, because they literally bring him to life at the beginning of the episode. They read his card, he gets fixed, he's alive by that point. But they don't do anything with it, because it kills this by revealing that all these pranks were by Zane and done, there were no consequence whatsoever to Slappy. And now, of course, this episode is iconic because Hayden Christensen played Zane, who obviously played Anakin Skywalker in the Star Wars prequels. But yeah, this episode really just doesn't do much for me. I think that part 2 is great. Part 2 is phenomenal. I think a lot of great Slappy stuff in here. Now, I will say that the way they made Slappy move in this episode, the little person in the costume looked really dumb. It just breaks the immersion immediately when you see it, because you just know, like, that's just a person in a costume. Because in Night of the Living Dummy 2 and Bride of the Living Dummy, they actually puppeteer him. Either in Dummy 2, it's more just seeing him move in the shadows and stuff. You don't actually see him walking around. It's mainly just in the shadows and stuff. But, you know, still looks like a dummy walking. And in Bride, they actually have him, like, standing up and things like that. And it really made him more animated and stuff with the puppeteer work. But here, it's just a little person in a costume. And no offense to the person who portrayed them. I don't want to portray Slappy. I don't want to hate on them. Same with the person who did Rocky. But it's just really obvious, really takes you out of the episode, in my opinion. And it's just so noticeable that it doesn't work. But there's still some good elements to it, and I will admit that. That's why it's higher up on the list than the others. But it's still, in my opinion, it's my least favorite Dummy episode. So, there's that. That's why I have Dummy 3 at my number 8. Now, my number 7 on the list is another one that I don't have a physical copy of, but it is Cry of the Cat. I rewatched this one recently for the first time, like, over my Christmas break in the month. I haven't watched that one since I was a kid, but that episode, it's really good. I think it's a really solid episode. There's a lot of really fun elements to it. You know, I kind of like that they changed the setting from a school play like it was in the book to an actual movie set. It kind of gives this really fun vibe. You get a lot of cool behind the scenes stuff and like meta nods and stuff to the movie industry. You see a lot of nice references to the entire Goosebumps TV show, because initially this episode was going to be the series finale. And that's why there are so many loving nods to Goosebumps, and there's so many things like that that's just really cool. Like a scene where Allison crashes her bike and her script falls out, and it's literally the Goosebumps Cry the Cat script. There's a bunch of references to Goosebumps stuff in one of the hallways that she goes down the movie studio. Like, I believe there's the Welcome to Horrorland sign is there. There's the, like, 2 thumbs up banner that was on the bus in Attack the Mutant. There's a bunch of fun stuff like that. Really fun little Easter eggs for the Goosebumps fans to enjoy. And that's why it was meant to be the series finale. But it got mixed up and aired out of order, and instead Deep Trouble was the finale, which is just a real shame because that episode sucks. And this episode is legs up of it, as you've already seen in the ranking. But yeah, Cry the Cat's a really fun one. There's a lot of really kind of funny bits, especially with that director character. He's hilarious. The actor does a great job playing him. I think the actress playing Allison was really good. She also played Iris in Calling All Creeps. She was really good in this. Corey Sevier is back from Night in Terror Tower, now much older, obviously, because Terror Tower was season 1 and Cry the Cat was season 4, so he's probably in his mid-teens by that episode. Probably like, I would say 15 or 16 maybe a little under that, but he's definitely older. Does a pretty good performance there, definitely better than in Terror Tower, I think. A lot of really fun stuff, some great practical effects with the demon rip. That cat looks really cool. He doesn't look anything like a cat, looks more like a rat and a gargoyle fused together. It doesn't look like a cat, but the design is still really cool, and the puppeteering work is nice. The big reveal with the mutant mom cat hybrid thing, that is really good looking and really scary. Honestly, easily one of the scariest visuals in the Goosebumps show. And the practical effects and makeup look amazing on it. And yeah, I just think it's a really well-made and fun episode. It's just something that you can watch it and just have fun noticing all the Easter eggs to different Goosebumps episodes and things like that. It's just a really good time. Again, I'll get more into that and all of these in my actual episode reviews, but I'm gonna move on. So I'm gonna go on to number 6 on my list. And number 6 is going to be Stay Out of the Basement. Really fun episode. Really good one. Easily one of the best performances in the show by Mr. Judah Katz, who played Dr. Brewer. Phenomenal actor. He performed that part so well. Easily one of the greatest performances in the whole Goosebumps show. A lot of the adult actors can do pretty good, especially some of the big villain ones like Eugene Lipinski, who played Mr. Mortman in Girl Who Cried Monster, and he also voiced Rocky in Dummy 3. There is the guy who played the shopkeeper in Haunted Mask. He's great. There's a lot of great adult performances, but Judah Katz is easily the standout. He does such a good job being intimidating and creepy, but also having this soft side and like this fatherly side. And it's just really nice. It's just a nice little juxtaposition. The actor does a great job playing both roles really well. A lot of cool practical effects too, with the like hand plants, kind of a nod to, I'm guessing, this cover art here. That's supposed to be reference to that. That looks nice. There's that like human face in the beanstalk or like the branch or whatever it was. That was really cool. I love that they added this like really harsh green light to the basement. That's a really cool aesthetic choice. They do a lot of really nice stuff with the aesthetics and stuff in this episode, and I really dig it. Again, performances. I think the girl playing Margaret is really good. She also portrayed Corrine in How I Got My Shrunken Head. She's much better here. The kid who plays Casey is fine. He's a bit annoying, honestly. Like, I'm not gonna, no ragging on the actor, but I don't know. I just found him kind of annoying. But yeah, there's a lot of great stuff. A lot of really eerie moments. You know, the scene where they're in their dad's bedroom and they discover the worms on the bed and all that stuff. That was really well done. The scene where he's, you know, in the bathroom and you see like him bleeding green blood and having like the leaves on his head. There's a lot of really well done moments in this episode that really do the book justice. Couldn't get as dark as the book again, but they do a good job at making the episode effectively creepy. And I really think they really knocked it out of the park there. Season 1's two-parters were all pretty solid, aside from Terror Tower, in my opinion. But yeah, phenomenal one. Really good. Moving on to my number 5. Number 5 is going to be Welcome to Dead House. This is a great episode. This is a great one. I already did my Welcome to Dead House episode review. Same with the Stay Out of the Basement review. If you want to see my more in-depth thoughts on that, you can go check out the reviews for them. But yeah, Dead House's episode is great. Easily one of the darkest episodes of the whole show, both in terms of stylization and in terms of tone. I think the location they chose for Dark Falls was phenomenal. Really well done. Really captures how you view it in the book. And now when I actually reread the book, I actually visualize Dark Falls from the episode. The house they chose to do as Dead House was phenomenal. They just did a really good job with it overall. Like, the acting was all great from the entire family. All the family members did a great job in their roles, especially the parents. The townsfolk were really good. You know, Mr. Dawes, who was a little meh, but he still wasn't bad. There's a lot of great stuff in here. And it's a really creepy episode and really effective, and does a very good job at adapting the book. I will say the book is better, but the episode is still a really good one. Highly recommend you guys give it a chance. There's a little nitpicky thing with the wreath mechanism, which is not in the book. They kind of added that for the episode. Wasn't really necessary, but still a really great episode. Really would recommend it, especially if you're wanting some of the more dark and scary Goosebumps stuff. If you have like kids and you're starting them out on Goosebumps, don't start them out with this episode, because this episode does get genuinely dark and scary. And yeah, I wouldn't recommend starting them out on this or like Girl Who Cried Monster or something like that. Start them out with some of the more light episodes. Even if if you want to show them some good episodes that are a bit more lighthearted and dark, but still, you know, well done, There's a lot of pretty solid ones. You know, you can do Revenge of the Lawn Gnomes. That one's not that bad in my opinion. The Monster Blow ones are pretty fun. See, the first Say Cheese and Die isn't that scary. There's a few of the better episodes that aren't scary. And I definitely recommend starting your kids off if they're not into horror or they can't really handle super scary stuff yet, but you still want to show them Goosebumps. Start them out on some of those episodes that I mentioned and then let them work their way up to something like this. But yeah, phenomenal episode. Now we're in my top 4. My number 4 spot is going to the final 2-parter from season 1. There's the final episode of season 1, actually. So I closed out the season before they took a break to go season 2. And that was The Werewolf of Fever Swamp, the 3rd R.L. Stine special. Phenomenal episode. So good. Much like what I said about the location for Dark Falls, the location they chose in Canada for Fever Swamp was so good. They nailed it. It really does feel like a Floridian swamp. I don't know how they found that in Canada, but it was great. They knocked it out of the park. Performances all around from Brendan Fletcher as Grady. He was great. The sister, the parents, they were all good. Will Blake, the guy who played him, he was okay. Wasn't great, but still not horrible by any means. The stand-up performance is easily the guy who played the Swamp Hermit. He was incredible, really scary, really kind of intimidating. And I like that the episode did give him more of a backstory with that the werewolf killed his wife and child, or kids. I'm not sure how many kids he had, but you know, the werewolf is implied that the werewolf killed Swamp Hermit's family. So it's really cool. I like that they added that backstory. Lots of really great cinematography, and the atmosphere is very dark and gloomy. Again, much like Welcome to Dead House, there's a very gloomy atmosphere permeating throughout the whole episode. Now, the werewolf suit looks not great in my opinion. It's probably the weakest element of the episode. There are some really cool shots where you do kind of have it hidden in the shadows, or you have close-ups that look really good, but when you just see the full suit, it does not look very great. But still a really good episode. There's a fun little callback with the haunted mask on a skateboard. There's a lot of nice things like that. Again, good performances all around. The twist ending is great, kind of a really ambiguous ending versus the more blatant ending that the book gives. It's really good. Really solid episode. Highly recommended to any of you guys who haven't seen it yet. Watch it. It's great. Moving on to my top 3. My number 3 may actually shock some people, since I know a lot of people are kind of mixed on this episode, but I love it. It's easily one of my favorites. I have a lot of good memories with it, the episode and the book, and I'm really excited to get to rereading that soon. But the episode I'm talking about is The Ghost Next Door. I love this episode. Easily one of the underrated gems of the show, in my opinion. There's something so special about it to me. Now, I have a lot of memories with the book, The Ghost Next Door, because it was the very first Goosebumps book I ever read. It's what got me into the series, and yeah, I just have a soft spot in my heart for this book. Same with the episode. The episode is a very faithful adaptation of the book. They do a bit more with the shadow, evil demon thing that's trying to take over Danny's place. It's in the episode. He's much more of a prominent villain in the episode versus when he is in the book. But I think the performances are all really good. The girl who plays Hannah is really, she does a good job. The kid who played Danny is pretty good. He's the same kid who played Noah in the Haunted Mask episodes. He was really good. It's easily one of the most emotional episodes and books. The finale and the way the episode ends is a beautiful, it's great. Easily a very heartwarming and touching end to any episode of Goosebumps. Probably the most uplifting ending. There's some beautiful piano music that's playing during that scene. It's just really well done. The main twist of the episode, which I'm not going to spoil for anyone who hasn't seen it, that twist is great. One you don't really expect coming as a kid. When you're an adult, it's a bit more predictable, but as a kid, you don't see it coming. But it's just a really solid one. I really enjoy it. I've always loved the episode. I've always loved the book. It's a special one for me and will always have a place in my heart. So, yeah, that's my number 3. Number 2 Now, most of you will know these two episodes are some of the best episodes of the whole show, but the placement may shock some people because most people have my number 2 as the number 1, and that would be The Haunted Mask. Now, this is a custom DVD for it because obviously Haunted Mask never got a DVD, but I still wanted to, have a physical prop for it that wasn't a book, and I have this on my hands, so yeah. Haunted Mask, fantastic episode. One of the best. It's the episode that kicked the whole Goosebumps TV show off, and what a way to open it. I don't think any episode ever truly matched the height of this episode. It was just phenomenal from beginning to end. So well done. Catherine Long as Carly Beth is so good. She's so good. Easily one of the best performances of the whole Goosebumps show, up there with like Brendan Fletcher and the guy who played Billy in Welcome to Camp Nightmare. Her performance is so good. She has such a touching and emotional performance, and you really feel this pain and sadness that this girl is going through, constantly being bullied and tormented by these people. And they keep scaring her and exploiting her for her fear, and it's just publicly humiliating her. And you can relate to the pain she feels because of how amazing Catherine Long's performance is. She's so good, easily the highlight. All the other actors do great. The guy who played the shopkeeper is fantastic. The mask itself looks really cool. Like here you can actually see it. Yeah, the design for the Haunted Mask itself looks really dope, really scary. The unloved ones all look really cool as well. The message is great, the whole message of just loving yourself and just being comfortable, being able to love yourself in your own skin despite your flaws. And that's just a message I think a lot of people need to hear because of how our modern society reflects people as, and telling people that they have to be a certain way or look a certain way, act a certain way to be liked or be, to fit in. But this episode has this really nice moral of, just be willing to be yourself, be comfortable in your own skin, appreciate who you are, and just, be who you are. Don't try to, be someone you're not, because that's just not gonna work out for you in the end. And that's just a moral I think a lot of people, especially kids, need to hear, because it's just a really great message for people to learn. Even adults can relate to this sometimes. And yeah, I just think the message is great. The effects and the scares are there. The performance by Catherine Long, as I mentioned, was phenomenal. Production quality, great. It's just an amazing way to kick off this show. And they really never matched it since, aside from one, in my opinion. But this episode is incredible. It's so good. Definitely watch this one. Honestly, it's amazing. I'm lost for words at this point. It's just phenomenal. You have to check this episode out if you're getting into Goosebumps and you've never seen it. Watch The Haunted Mask. It's great. But moving on to my number 1. And all you fans of the Goosebumps TV show who kind of know the two-parters, well, no, there's only one that I'm missing, and it's the one I'm about to talk about right now. Easily the best R.L. Stine special, the best two-parter. In my opinion, the best episode of the whole show. No bars, no questions asked. Easily the best. The Haunted Mask 2. Now, the book is kind of lackluster in my opinion. It's not amazing, it's not horrible. It's just kind of a middle-of-the-road book. But the episode is so good. They do so much amazing stuff in this episode. They really do change the book a lot to the point where it's almost unrecognizable. Like, you would be shocked, I feel like, going from the book to the episode or the episode to the book because the plots are so different. There's the same basic idea where Steve goes to Steve, one of the bullies from the Haunted Mask, goes to the novelty shop where Carly Beth got her mask, finds that's abandoned, goes downstairs and finds the old man mask, and then the mask starts to change him, make him age faster, makes him weak and tired, and yeah, pretty similar basic plots, but there's a lot of changes they make that really benefit the episode. Because in the book, Steve's motivation is to simply get back at it and scare a group of, I believe, first graders on a soccer team that he coaches, that he's kind of forced to coach as a detention punishment kind of thing. But in the episode, the reasoning he's doing this is because he wants one last Halloween to be scary and go out and just have a good time to trick-or-treat before he's too old to do it. And again, much like Haunted Mask 1, that's another very relatable thing that a lot of us can go through, as, you know, when we were growing up, you know, especially as adults, growing up and, you know, coming to that age where you start getting a little too old for trick-or-treating and start phasing that out, and you kind of want one last Halloween to really be special. And that's all that Steve wants. He wants to just, you know, have one last Halloween, have fun, be a kid before they get too old to do it. And that's kind of a nice, and that's a really great metaphor because of what happens to him with the old man mask. And, you know, there's just a lot of great stuff to it. The biggest change, though, is that in the episode, Carly Beth's mask from the first part ends up coming back and is the main antagonist. Now, so while Steve's mask is, you know, aging him and making him weak and tired like it is in the book, Carly Beth's mask possesses the shopkeeper and basically tries to convince Steve to destroy the plaster of Paris head of Carly Beth that her mom made her in the first episode, and that way the mask can reattach itself to Carly Beth and never come off, and it'll be there forever. And that's just a much better motivation, in my opinion. It's just a better story. It's more well thought out. The acting is great overall. I think his name is John White. He does fantastic as Steve. Kind of a Goosebumps alum. He also played Michael in Cuckoo Clock of Doom. He has a great job. They got all of the original cast back. Aside from him, they got all of the original cast from the first Haunted Mask episode back. They all do great. Once again, Catherine Long does a really good job playing a more fearless and brave Carly Beth than she was in the first part, or the first episode. Yeah, performances are great. Practical effects look phenomenal. I think the old man mask honestly looks better than Carly Beth's mask. I love the design for the old man mask. It looks awesome. They just really did a good job with it. And there's a lot of really scary stuff. It's easily one of the scariest episodes of the show, with how they have the mask warping and distorting as it attaches to Steve's face more, and you see his hands like turn to elderly man hands. And there's just a lot of stuff like that that's just really creepy, really unsettling. There's some great Halloween atmosphere. You gotta love that also, again, is in the first Haunted Mask. By my opinion, they do it better in the sequel. And yeah, this episode is phenomenal. Easily the best episode of the whole show. Again, I would recommend watching these two episodes as a double feature. Watch Haunted Mask 1 and then Haunted Mask 2. They're great. You will not be disappointed with either episode, and highly recommend both. But that's it. That's every two-parter in the Goosebumps TV series, ranked from worst to best. I hope you all enjoyed the video, and if you did, please make sure to subscribe to the channel if you want to see more content. And let me know in the comments your listing for how you would rank every two-part episode, because I would love to hear it, and I hope you all have a very scary day, and I will see you next time.